Good morning, y'all, and welcome back to Overcompensated. Today, I'm joined by someone who truly embodies what it means to carve your own path and redefine success on your own terms. Mitchell, from navigating the tech world to making bold career pivots, Mitchell's journey is full of honesty, ambition, and the kind of clarity that most of us spend years trying to find. We'll talk about what it really takes to make career moves that look risky from the outside but feel right on the inside. We'll also get into what happens after you make it, how to protect your energy, what sustainable success actually means, and how he incorporates being a father into his journey as a tech sales professional. This episode is going to be full of a ton of perspective, vulnerability, and just real conversations. So I'm so excited for you to hear it. Let's get into it. I want to kick it over to Mitchell and I would love for you to introduce yourself, share a little bit about, your journey thus far, maybe how we met, how we got connected, and yeah, kick it off.
Awesome. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, Alexis. This is
Of
an awesome
course.
podcast. Really excited to be here and excited to share some tips, insights, and whatnot just from my journey. But as quick background, just a regular guy, born and raised in the middle of nowhere in Ohio, of all places. Lived in Chicago for about 5 years, and now I'm back in Ohio with my beautiful wife. We're celebrating our fifth year wedding anniversary here in a couple days,
Congrats.
actually. Thank you.
Amazing.
Yes, and I'm a father of a 2 year old as well. And outside of that, I work in tech sales and got a few different like things on the side that I'm doing as well, but really passionate around helping folks within their career paths and then really passionate about leadership as well. And one of the angles and areas that we met that I'm very passionate about too is just within helping folks within the underrepresented communities and underserved communities. And I know that we did a lot of work at LinkedIn together in that
Mm-hmm.
space within our Black inclusion group.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't we start there? So how we met during our time at LinkedIn. We were both a part of the Black inclusion group, and I just think that when I was at LinkedIn, it was a time where people really valued diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. That was almost, I think, 5 years ago when we met, and we've since seen a lot of like changes in how corporations are showing up for their underserved and underrepresented communities. But I know that you have done, a ton of work. So how did you get really involved, aside from the obvious, in working with underserved communities in the tech industry?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I think it goes back to kind of the foundation of who I am and kind of how I've grown to more so embrace that a little bit. So, talking about growing up in the middle of nowhere, Ohio, I grew up in basically like an area that was all white. So, like, not a lot of people look like me at all. And the way that I learned to survive, for lack of a better term, was to assimilate to their culture, assimilate to the culture, like not really embrace kind of who I was. And I really wasn't able to do that until I got to college and really understood like so many different facets of like, wow, like this is what it's like to be a black person in America. And like, I don't need to speak differently or I don't need a code switch in order to be accepted. And I really just took that unapologetic energy into the corporate workspace as well. And it was really awesome that we had the outlet of the Black Inclusion Group at LinkedIn to really just show, like, yes, you can show up as your full self within this corporate environment. And that's just really kind of how I got involved and started doing like different things here to help like retain and engage our Black community at LinkedIn Chicago. Ended up becoming the leader of the co-leader of the Black Inclusion Group, which was really fun. And so I felt like we threw a bunch of cool events and then got like involved with like a lot of like leadership that was helpful to help us like navigate our careers at LinkedIn too, which was great.
Amazing. And honestly, talking about how, your upbringing and coming from, a smaller town in Ohio, can you share a little bit about how you were able to break into tech sales? What made you want to get into this space? Let's start at the beginning of your career because clearly it's evolved so much.
It has. So I'll say I went to the University of Cincinnati, and so that's where I studied in undergrad. And I was a marketing and international business student, and I really wanted to be a marketer. And I thought the end all be all was going to go work for Procter and Gamble, which was right there in Cincinnati, huge company. And they're like, if you're a really good business student, you go there and you work as a brand manager. And leading into my senior year of college, I got an internship as a brand manager. So this was like the test. You test it out for a summer, then you get that the full offer to come work after school. So during my test, it was absolutely terrible, and it did not go well at all. And really, when I look back, I'm like, all right, there was just a misalignment of like the skills that I have and the skills that it took to be really successful in that role, and it was just not for me. But the salespeople at P&G looked like they were having a good life, and they seemed like they had similar personalities. And I was like what's going on over there? And was able to link up. I don't know if you're familiar with the Management Leaders for Tomorrow program, but MLT. It's a program for underrepresented minorities in undergrad, and it helps connect and bridge the gap between like a lot of Fortune 500 companies. And they're the ones that introduced me to LinkedIn, and from there got involved with the business leadership program at the time, which ramped you into a sales program. And so that's really kind of start to finish how I got into sales, and then also how I landed at LinkedIn after undergrad.
That's fantastic. Were there any, limiting beliefs that you might have had like early on in your career, like, oh, I can't do this, or, was there anything that kind of like intimidated you about making this change when it sounded like you had one path that you were initially set on, realized you needed to pivot? How was the like psychological change there?
Yeah. I'll say like there wasn't much of me saying like, oh, I don't know if I can be like a salesperson or get at sales. It was more so the limiting factor was the perception that I had of what salespeople are and like who you need to be in order to be a successful salesperson. I always thought about a salesperson as like, oh, people always joke the used car salesman, and like that's kind of all a salesperson is. And so, like, the perception that comes with that is like, oh, they're a sleazy person. They lie all the time. They're trying to do backdoor deals, and like, they're just not a good person overall. And so that's what I thought like people would think about me if I said, yeah, I'm gonna go work in sales. I actually didn't tell people. I just said I was going to LinkedIn for this business leadership program, and I didn't even mention it was a sales program. But as I got into learning sales, I really understood like, oh, like I can still, value honesty and like be honest with customers. Oh, it's really just matching up like what their vision is to a product that we might have, or issues and concerns that they might have within their business that I'm able to help solve with these products that I'm giving them and selling to them at the end of the day. So I would say that was more so the limiting belief was my perception of what selling was. And then just learned quickly what the actual reality of being a sales professional is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people have that, misconception. It's very common that salespeople are disingenuous and will do basically anything to get a deal. And honestly, from my experience, I don't know a single successful salesperson who's not personable, who's not empathetic, who's not a good communicator, who's not, solution oriented. I think that, traditionally, obviously, if you're thinking about used cars, of course, but I think when we go into like tech sales, and it's really unfortunate because these are careers where people can make so much money. There's so much upward mobility potential. I like to think of, sales. It's like you don't have to have a specific degree. I mean, you said you studied, international business and marketing. I mean, I studied comparative human development, and you're able to break into this just based on those soft skills that you have. If you are a good communicator, if you are empathetic, if you are goal oriented, if you are driven, and there's so many people who are like that. And I feel like it's such a missed opportunity to not like educate people more about, hey, this is one of those careers where like you can break in, and if you're willing to work hard and put in the effort, you can move up very quickly. You can make six figures very quickly. And there's just so much missed opportunity, especially from people like of our background. Cause like at least something that I've encountered a lot is most people who know about tech sales is because they have a family member or a friend, friend of a family member who's in tech sales and says, hey, you should really consider breaking into Dell or LinkedIn or XYZ tech company and getting into the SDR role and kind of working your way up. So if anything, I feel like more people should be, aware of all of the opportunities that exist and the opportunity to, again, like control your paycheck, make a bunch of money, move up and have a lot of like autonomy and freedom. Like, what are your thoughts there?
No, that's spot on. I think exposure is the thing that is the limiting factor for a lot of us getting involved in the tech community and understanding like what is truly sales, what is truly tech sales at the end of the day as well. And that's just something I like personally care about. Like I believe in the three E's. And so the three E's are education, exposure, and experience. And so first, like we need to like educate a community on like, hey, here's the possibilities. Here are like what you can actually do, and like here's the foundation of learning you need. Two, from an exposure standpoint, like we need to like let them see it. Like I think this podcast is great for exposure because it's showing young people that might be watching it or people that might be pivoting careers like, oh, tech sales is an option. All right, cool. I'm getting exposed to what this is. And then lastly, experience. And so if we're able to let folks test it out, grab an SD role to be able to see like what does the inside of this look like? How do you operate as a salesperson? Is this something I'm really interested in? And I think that's how we start to transform people's lives. And also, we start to transform people's paychecks that lead
Yeah.
into the transformation of what they're able to do from an economic standpoint for their families as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we're transforming, people's like economic mobility, which is something that I'm
Mm.
super passionate about. So obviously we met when you were at LinkedIn. You're no longer at LinkedIn. Tell us a little bit about how you made the decision to go from a huge, tech company that everybody knows the name of to, more of a, kind of startup type role. I would love to hear about how you made that choice. What were the challenges? How did that transition go?
Yeah, no, great question. So I was at LinkedIn for about 7 years, and I feel like that is ancient if you for somebody that's working in the tech industry. But I will say there are a lot of people that have been there that I know for like 10 plus years, and I think that's just a credit to the amazing company LinkedIn is, and the way that they treat their employees, develop their employees, and so on. So always bunch of gratitude to LinkedIn. The reason I ended up making a pivot though was mainly from a skill standpoint. And so I got to the point where I was getting promoted. I was promoted 4 times in 4 years to start off with, which was awesome. And I got to a point where I just wasn't growing as much from a skill level as I was growing from a title level. And so there were some weeks where, hey, I knew exactly how to work only, 30 hours a week to hit my goal, 20, 30 hours a week to hit the goal. And like, that's all I needed. And I'm like, yeah, this is not the energy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's going to lead to a lot of learning and a lot of career growth in the long term. So for myself, I knew how I was motivated. And so I knew that I needed to pivot in order to get myself in a different environment so I would learn, put my head down a little bit more, and really be able to grind to get where I wanted to be in the future. So fast
Amazing.
forward, ended up checking out just different organizations and landed an awesome company called Deal. And we're HR solution, so similar space. I'm working with similar buyers, but like the company started in 2019, and it's super successful so far. And so just hoping to help scale a lot of the growth that that organization's having right now.
And what are some of the things that you hope to learn in, a smaller hyper growth company versus a large company like LinkedIn? Because I, personally in my career, I've bounced from, smaller company in my first role, then I went to LinkedIn, then I went to back to a hyper growth company, and then I went to, Snowflake, which is like a much larger organization, 10,000 people. And I just feel like in my experience, it just helps so much to have both sides of that kind of experience to see how things work at a large enterprise organization versus how things work at a hyper growth startup. And obviously you're newer in your role there, but like what are some of the things that you're hoping to learn, and also what would be your recommendations for someone trying to decide between a larger enterprise company with a lot of like tools and enablement versus a smaller startup with a lot of opportunity for personal development and growth?
Yeah, no, great question. Um, I think the first part of that for me is like kind of the why, and why it was necessary for me to go from like a larger company to a smaller company is when I was going through interviews at some of these smaller companies, the feedback that I would get immediately was like, "Hey, Mitchell, like you're great. It seems like your experience at LinkedIn was awesome, but I don't know if you can translate that to a smaller company that doesn't have the brand recognition as LinkedIn." And like simply put, people did not know if I could sell without having a big logo that was like a household name. And so that's, I think, what's important for folks to know is like, hey, if you've only been at large companies, there might be a skill gap there, or at least a perceived skill gap that other organizations are looking at you saying like, yeah, they sold at Microsoft before. I don't know if they can sell for my company because it might be a little harder for them to get meetings and to actually get their foot in the door for some of these deals. So I think that was one of the number one things that was difficult for me to pivot. But then also a big thing that was helpful for me to know as I was looking to pivot and going through some of these interview processes. And when it comes to people deciding if they want to go big company or small company, one of the things I always say is like knowing yourself is so important. It's really important. So if you know, like, yes, I love when all the processes are together. I love when everything is super organized. Like I would definitely say go for a larger organization.
Yeah.
And so for some of those smaller ones that you could probably have probably seen and noticed, you kind of have to be a self starter. Like you have to make the processes. You have to be bold to make the recommendations of, you know, what might be the right pathway and the right thing to go pursue, because all the answers aren't going to be there for you at a smaller company. And that's one of the awesome skill sets that you're actually gaining there is you're getting a lot of ownership and you're getting a lot of abilities to lead both formally and informally as well.
And I think that's fantastic. Now, I'm curious because a lot of what we've been talking about recently has been the, job market and how it's much more difficult right now to find a job, to pivot if you're trying to change industries or even if you're just trying to change companies. So, how was your, job search process? How long did that take? Did you feel like, this market is more challenging than maybe what we experienced 5 years ago when it might have been, easier to break into a new industry or break into a new company? I mean, I feel like we're all seeing kind of a constraint in the market and in hiring, and companies are being very much more they're being much more selective. They are being very intentional about who they hire, but I also feel like companies are less prone to taking risks on people right now. Was that something that you felt or experienced during your interview transition process?
Definitely, that's exactly what I experienced. This interview or this in economic environment for a job change is so bad, and it's
Yeah.
like demoralizing for a lot of people that like have skills but just like can't score some of these jobs. And there's people you see it on LinkedIn all the time, like, oh, I've applied to 200 jobs and have gotten rejected from every single one of them and not gotten interviews, or whatever it might be. And I had a similar experience to I was job searching and looking for about like a year and a half, and I'll say I wasn't doing it as aggressively as I should be, mainly because I still got this great job that I'm working right now, luckily, and was very blessed to be able to have that opportunity to look for a job while I currently had a job versus having to look when I didn't. But I think I took some arrogance into the process, the job search process as well. And the arrogance came from like, hey, I've worked at LinkedIn for 6, 7 years. Like, this is one of the biggest companies. We're owned by Microsoft, glamorous. I'm like, anyone will take me, like anyone. And so I took that arrogance into the process. And so I just started applying to random places, big and small. And all I got was rejection after rejection. Like, yeah, rejection after rejection. I'm like,
Humbling.
did anyone look at my like resume? Like I'm a baller. I've been at this big company for forever. Very humbling though. And so what I quickly realized was like, all right, this is a tougher job environment where, to your point, like folks are looking for very, very specific experience and they want the perfect person for this role. They're not just going to take their chance on somebody that they might need to develop in a specific way. And so, what I needed to do is I needed to hone in a little bit more and be super selective and specific with the jobs I was looking at. So I was being very clear with the exact type of role I wanted. And then I was being very clear with how I was operating and like how I was going to go after that job. So for instance, the job that I got, I had a couple referrals at the company, but those referrals didn't pan out. Um,
Oh, really?
yeah, yeah. So the referrals did not pan out. I still wasn't getting interviews from the referrals. What I needed to do was, get creative on my prospecting essentially. And I reached out to the hiring manager at the time and sent a message like, hey, here's who I am. It was pretty creative, kind of the way I sent it. And then from there, they responded and got back to me. But also, just as we're applying and getting denials all the time, like I would reach out to hiring managers and not get responses frequently. So it's kind of like you just have to have that due diligence.
Yeah, and you know what's so interesting is I feel like the first suggestion that anybody gives when you're kind of trying to apply to jobs and every single person who's unemployed has heard is like, oh, just like get a referral, just network.
Hmm.
Networking is not working in the same way anymore. You can't just, I mean, if you're hearing that, hey, you worked at LinkedIn, you've got this ego, you've got the success, you've been, promoted four
Yeah.
times in 4 years, and even a referral is not working for you. I'm curious how you're thinking about networking versus branding. So, slight pivot here, but I know that you've been doing a lot of like LinkedIn branding. Do you think, that's benefited you in any way? How did you make that decision to start, working on growing that LinkedIn brand? I know I've been working on it too. We both worked at LinkedIn. Obviously, we're both biased.
Yeah.
We love the platform. But I'm curious, how did you decide to start making that pivot and making that investment in your own personal brand?
Yes. Investing in you and the personal brand is everything nowadays. And honestly, it's something that I feel like I knew for the longest time, but I just didn't take the steps to do it because it's daunting. It seems like it's going to take a lot of time. And like, it's like, yo, I don't know what I'm actually getting out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much value that I've seen in just I'd say I've consistently been posting on LinkedIn for like the last couple of months, and like there's so much value and like so many people that are just randomly reaching out to me, which has been cool, and I've really appreciated it. But basically, looking at LinkedIn right now as a platform as a whole, it's a huge white space, I feel, and like the opportunity is absolutely endless. Like if we look at any other like Instagram or TikTok, even like everybody's on there, and like it's like not saturated yet, but a lot of people are like, all right, can I be the next big influencer? Because like we're getting brand deals and things like that. I feel like LinkedIn has huge opportunity to be an influencer, to gain a following, to gain like brand deals. Yeah, like awesome, but also to just show yourself of who you are, and gain job opportunities from it. I feel like if we're posting and we're showing, hey, this is who I am. These are the things I like to do. This is the type of work that I put forward as well. Job offers will be coming people's ways proactively. And even from a networking standpoint, is when we're networking and showing what we do, people are reaching out, people are commenting on our stuff. When it comes time for us to make a pivot or a career pivot or find another opportunity, we'll have that network of individuals just around that we've been engaging with proactively over the last however whatever name the time frame, and that's what I feel is going to make it a lot easier for folks to gain opportunities and access to those opportunities in the future if they start engaging.
That makes a lot of sense. So you said you just started kind of posting consistently 2 months ago. What would be your advice or recommendation to someone who is just getting started? Like, how did you define your brand, your niche, what you want to focus on? I know you said earlier about knowing yourself. Is that going to
Yeah.
tie into the recommendation?
No, it definitely will. Honestly, in this age, I say always lean on your best friend, aka AI. Um,
Oh, yeah. ChatGPT.
Yes. So like when it comes to like knowing yourself, I think the hardest thing is like when somebody says like, "Yeah, do you like know yourself? Do you know what you like? Do you know like all these different things?" It's like, "Yeah, like on the surface, but like the true depths of who I am, I don't know if I can properly articulate that." And so like I did a session with like ChatGPT I don't know, a few months ago. Was basically like prompted it and said, "Hey, like I want you to get to know me really well. Ask me a few questions that are gonna like help uncover like who I am and what I care about and like the type of person I am." And so it spit out like a few different questions, and so I just took time to like respond to those. And it might shoot me some more questions, and then I sent answers back to those as well. So it's really analyzing who I am, how I speak, all that good stuff. And then after that, you can ask it like, "Hey, like based on this, how would you describe who I am, both personally and professionally? And if I had to create a LinkedIn brand, like what would that look like?" And so it literally spit out a rough draft of like, this is kind of who you are. These are the things you care about. And then going the step farther of like, hey, what things should I post about? And so that's where it really came out of like, all right, cool. You're in tech sales. That's your profession. But the things that you really care about are, career growth, and then also reflecting on like modern leadership and what the modern workforce looks like as well. So like those are the main things that I'll post about. And AI just helped me redefine that and like get super specific in kind of what that niche is that I really like posting on.
I love that. And so, what are your thoughts on, modern leadership? I've been a leader for, a few years now, and I can see so many shifts, especially as like we're managing, Gen Z, we're managing people through a lot of different like economic changes, just changes in the workplace. There have been so many shifts, and it can kind of be hard for leaders to really identify their own unique like leadership brand. I
Hmm.
identified mine as being like very like driven and empathetic and just basically driving people towards, whatever goal that we might have set out for us. And that's definitely a very sales leadership approach. But, is your perspective more holistic, or what should modern leaders be thinking about right now?
Yeah, I think modern leaders right now should be thinking of how are we catering recommendations and opportunities specifically for the folks that we're leading. We live in an environment today, you described it, like everyone's different and things are changing all the time. And we have immense access to like tools and technology to help us be super specific on the recommendations and coaching that we're giving. And so, how are we moving quickly in order to like gain feedback, act on that feedback, and like iterate as much as possible in leveraging these tools to do so? Quick example on this that I think has been like an amazing example of a leader that has like shown what modern leadership is to a T is if we look at the CEO of Red Lobster. I forget his name on the top of my head right
Yes.
now,
Yes.
but like he is like redefining what leadership looks like from a C-suite level of a major organization that's like a household brand that's been around for our lifetime, right? Like this man is like moving mountains. Have you seen the recent stuff from him?
Oh, yeah. Isn't it like a seafood boil or something like that?
Yes, yes. He's
Yeah,
like
he's just
totally
revamping Red Lobster so people want to come back. And I'm just like, you're doing the marketing for your entire marketing team as the CEO, which is honestly how you should be leading.
yes, exactly how you should be really be leading. Like Red Lobster, they were in bankruptcy for I don't know, probably like the last year or so, or two, honestly. He came on board maybe within the last year, and they just announced like last week that they're officially out of bankruptcy. And I think a couple things that he did was he listened, and so he understood, hey, like what do people actually care about nowadays when it comes to like a seafood restaurant? And so I think that's where they launched like the seafood boil, and then they did a couple of drink specials and like launched those as quickly as possible. And it's like awesome. These are things people care about. But 3 weeks after, well, right after they launched the seafood boil, there was a ton of feedback on like social media of like, the seafood boil is bland, it's not seasoned well, like, don't waste your money on it. What this man did is he corralled a team after seeing this feedback. 2 weeks later, they turned around and said, hey, thanks for the feedback, guys. We've got 3 different spice levels that we're doing on the
I
seafood
did see
boil that you
that.
can choose from. And like this other option here, we're rolling out across the nation. Like
And
you're able to roll
that
out
pivot
that
is so important.
right, right, and able to do it so quickly within 2 weeks. And we've got leaders that might not be able to pivot in 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. And it's so funny because my grandma used to love Red Lobster. Like anytime I would go to St. Louis, she would always like have us go. And I haven't been
Yeah,
to Red Lobster in forever, and I hadn't even really heard about it. But, that ability to also just drive social media engagement and awareness around something is so powerful, and it's so important. And to your point about,
it is.
building a brand on LinkedIn, like Red Lobster has redefined their brand. They took it from, my grandma who loved it back to us, and it's like, okay, that's fantastic. And I just feel like that level of like innovation and willingness to also receive feedback, because I think a lot of CEOs could get defensive and be like, well, I rolled out this whole new initiative and no
Hmm.
one likes it. Well, never mind. I can see a lot of CEOs taking that kind of approach versus like
Yeah,
actually listening and hearing and taking that kind of customer success perspective, where it's like, okay, if I want to be successful, we have to listen to our end consumers.
exactly. We have to listen and we have to pivot as quickly as possible because right now there's no excuse. Like if we miss this boat, there's going to be another company that's going to come around and like take the insights that they learned from you and off your back and overstep you in the switch of rails. So that's really what like modern leadership looks like to me, and like exactly how we need to be moving within these corporations. This is how leaders need to be acting and removing barriers for their employees and their teams on a daily basis.
I absolutely love that. So I know that you kind of like, you said you love the name of the podcast,
Yeah.
Overcompensated. And part of what overcompensated means is being rich in compensation and richer in life. And you've been doing a lot of stuff outside just, working and being successful professionally. Tell me a little bit about, how you're able to balance your work life with, being a husband and a father. And I saw you, started the Daddy Stroller Club, and just have been doing so many incredible things outside of work to bring that level of just like holistic balance, because nowadays it's not just about what's on your W-2, it's about what do you have, outside of just your work profession, your work identity. And I think a lot of people are struggling with, reconciling that their entire identity can't just be work, especially as we're dealing with a challenging economy, especially as people are going through, layoffs and experiencing unemployment. You have to have things outside of it as well. So tell me about
Mhm.
how, your philosophy on that like balance and how you enjoy your life outside of just, your 9 to 5.
Yeah, no. Thanks for bringing that up, and I think that's such an important piece of like how are we rich, right? Like we're rich, yes, from our income, but like we're rich from the things that we care about and the things that are around us, like our family, our friends, and our hobbies, and so much more that like truly makes us who we are as a person. So I love that you bring that up and kind of make that a center point. Right now, we've got so much like hybrid work and like work from home life that I think it makes, for me at least, it makes it so much easier to be like a full, like engaged father and husband on a personal note. I look back at like how my parents had to do it. Like my dad, he worked different shifts all the time. Amazing father though. And my mom, she worked 9 to 5 and went into the office every single day for like the entire time that I was within the household. And I'm like, wow, like, and you still got everything done. Like, I have no idea how they did it. And so now being a person that works from home full time, maybe travels occasionally for clients, I'm like, wow, I have to make it happen, and I have no excuse but to. So it's been nice to be able to have that balance. And I think the thing that's been helpful is one of the leaders at LinkedIn actually told me this. He said, "Hey, Mitchell, he's like at this hour, like 4:30, 5 o'clock. He's like, I shut off my phone, I distance myself, and it's full family time until the kids go to bed. He's like, I've seen the way that they look and like they notice that the phone is out and they know that they don't have my full attention. So he's like, I'll turn that back on, and I'll get back on after they're in bed, and might be on working for like an hour or so after that. And like that was the way that he balanced it, and so that was some of the advice that he gave me, and so I've been leveraging that, which has been helpful. And then just building community outside of work, I think is really important. Other people that are going through similar situations as you. So I started the Daddy Stroller Social Club here in Cleveland. It was already a thing in Dallas, started by Calvin Bridgewater. So kudos to him on seeing the importance around fathers coming together with their children. And so I wanted to launch that here in Cleveland. It's been absolutely amazing just to get some fatherhood advice from a dad that's growing.
And is there anything that you all have like seen or talked about being, a father, being in the workplace, being outside of it? Any kind of like lessons or learnings that y'all have been able to just realize together as a community? Because I feel like when you talk about community, that is so important, and having people who understand the things that you're going through, where they can give advice, where it resonates. I'm sure there's dads who, are older dads and newer dads like yourself. Like there's probably a really broad spectrum. And we hear a lot about motherhood in the workplace, but we don't hear quite as much about fatherhood in the workplace. I'm just really curious, like, what have y'all discussed? What have those takeaways been? What has
Yeah.
that felt like to have that level of community?
Of course. So the foundation of the Daddy Stroller Social Club is all around men's mental health,
Wow, I didn't
and
know that.
postpartum depression and dads. Yeah. So that's really why it started. And one of the things is when you become a father, a lot of time there's like a ton of pressure that comes with it. And so it's not only like, all right, how do I take care of this child? But traditionally, we look at the man and the father as like the provider, the protector of the family, and a lot of those things like they weigh heavily on a dad's brain. As so they do mothers as well, and I think that's why there's like so much support around mothers, and there's so many other things that moms are dealing with all the time. But sometimes the dads just don't speak up about the pressures and the things that they feel. And so that's really when we come together as dads, we talk about some of those things. So we talk about, hey, how's the financial pressure going on in the family? You're an entrepreneur, like business is a little bit slow right now. Like, let's chat about that. Like, how are we doing it? Can we help you strategize? Like, whatever that might look like. And so those small things are really helpful for some of these dads to like start thinking about getting outside of their head, and just being able to put on the table, talk, and say like, oh, some other dads are going through this too. Like, I'm not alone in a lot of these areas of life, and I think that's where a lot of the value has come from with these fathers.
Is there anything that you would say to someone who's a dad in the workplace and is, questioning whether or not they might be struggling with some of their, own mental health? Obviously, again, we're in a very volatile economic situation right now. So I can
Mm-hmm.
imagine that, again, that adds to pressure. And obviously, we've been in sales for a long time. We understand that, your paycheck with sales can fluctuate depending on, your performance. So any advice that you might be able to share or a perspective?
Yeah, I think the main perspective is that you're not alone, and so it's like, Dad, like we're right there with you. There's other dads that are going through this as well. We're here to help, and there's professionals that are here to help. And don't be afraid to go chat with them. I think a lot of times we're just so afraid to open our mouths and let someone in, but it's like we don't need to be afraid of that. Like it's okay. Like we're just people. We're just dads at the end of the day, and everything's gonna be okay as long as we reach out and get some help.
And honestly, as you're looking to, your future, obviously you just made this transition into a new role, which is super exciting. But what
Mhm.
are some things that obviously I feel like we don't really do like 5-year plans or 10-year plans anymore because we're just going with whatever wherever the opportunity presents itself. We're just kind of trying to find alignment in our lives. But is there anything that you're looking to achieve or that you're really looking forward to over whatever timeline you of your choice?
No, of course. I think a couple things. One, professionally, like I would love to be a C-suite professional at some point in life. And so climbing as a people leader into a, senior people leader and so on, I think would be amazing professionally. Also from like a social standpoint and like almost political adjacent standpoint, I think there's so many like social issues and things that are going on within our communities that people like us are able to provide great perspective on. And so would love to be a community leader at some level as well. And then I think just personally, like family wise, like just want to be able to raise a great family. I want to be a suburban dad so bad.
Love that.
And just have like a chill life where you're able to travel, have some leisure, and just be able to enjoy the folks around you.
I think that's beautiful. And I love hearing that and that you still have these kind of like, dreams and goals for yourself. But do you find that you're always kind of like striving for the next thing, or do you feel like you've been able to really start like living and just existing in the moment? What's your kind of POV on that?
No, great question. I think if I look back like a few years ago, it was just like striving for the next thing. It was just like, hey, Mitchell, all right, you got this promotion. All right, go get the next one as quickly as you can, and just like start grinding and like going and trying to see like what's the next like mountaintop or peak. And I think as I've like sat back, listened to a lot of podcasts and a lot of people that are way smarter than me, they've all like reached these different peaks in life, and they're like, it's cool for the moment, but like that's not the thing that's most important. And so what I've tried to do and refine over the last couple of years is just like understand like what is the main thing that's so important to me. So like, and that is like being rich in family, and like being rich in friends and community. And so I've really tried to lean into that more so and lean into my learning and my skill development instead of just searching for the next thing, searching for the next job title, promotion, whatever it might be.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I really, really appreciate you taking all of the time and sharing, all of these incredible perspectives on, growing your career, on your branding, on how you balance work life and family life. Is there any, main takeaways that you want to share with the people listening? Anything that really like stands out to you as something that would be, helpful for people to just like know or understand?
Yeah. I think the one thing that I would really lean into is we talked about it a little bit ago around the personal branding aspect. And that's one thing I would love for folks to just remember here is like your personal brand tells so much about who you are when you're not around and when you can't get in front of some of these people. And we live in such a dynamic world right now where like everything is seen digitally. And if you're not shown digitally, you are absent from this world almost. And so being on there and representing and showing the true representation of who you are is so important. And so leveraging LinkedIn to share about your personal and professional journey and doing so on a consistent basis will help you stand out among the billion members on that platform, but then also help you stand out within your profession, within your company, and so on to get you to where you want to be.
That's fantastic. So, on that point, is how can people follow, connect, engage with you? Where should they, find you? And are there any, upcoming like events or projects that you're working on that you'd want to shout out for people to keep an eye out for?
Yes. So follow me on LinkedIn at Mitchell Phelps. I don't even know if there's an at. But yeah, find me on LinkedIn at Mitchell Phelps. Shoot me a message, shoot me a DM. Would be happy to connect with you. And project wise, something I'm working on. I've been getting a lot of questions on like how to perfect your LinkedIn profile. And so the thing I'm doing right now is kind of building out a little course on that. Like of just quick tips on how people can, fully flesh out their profile and position it toward the areas that they want to be targeting.
I think that's fantastic. And I cannot wait for people to follow along, to see what you're doing, for them to continue to learn from you. Really appreciate, this conversation. Obviously, your success hasn't been static, but it's, just grown and evolved over time. And I just think that's so fantastic for people to be able to learn from and take away. So thank you
Thanks.
so much, Mitchell, for showing us what it looks like to lead and to grow your career with intention and integrity while still finding the balance of, family life, work life, as you're, continuing to strive to do all of these amazing things. So, to everyone listening, if this conversation resonated, don't forget to subscribe, share it with a friend, and leave a review. It helps this message just reach more high performers who are ready to stop overcompensating and start living fully. So, until next time, stay grounded, stay driven, and remember being rich in compensation is great, but being rich in life is the goal. Thanks, y'all.